from whatever is retrieved from the API. So what we already have is we have the params, which is the input that goes in. This is what we give into the API, and we expect an output out of it. So when you run this, you get an output, which is like a list of dictionaries if you look at it carefully. And then it has a bunch of information in there. And what we want to do is take out these particular values from in there for each restaurant. This is what we need. So what we get out, we give the input, we get a list of dictionaries. Each dictionary corresponds to a single restaurant. This is what we are getting. We already have this function which is called the extract details from menus. So if you see the results of this function, so this is what we extract from the function. We extract the ID, name, and location. So what we from the question, what we need is we need the ID, we need the name, we need the location, but also the categories. But in the previous question, we actually built a function which does the extraction of the three of the things that we need to extract. So if you look at, let's go back to the function once, just so that we can. So this is the function which calls this function. So if you go back to this function, this is what it does. So basically, when you pass in a venue, it just like extracts it from a dictionary. So it uses the key and extracts the value and gives it like ID, name, and location. That is how we get the values. So let's go back to where we were. Okay, so we already have this function which extracts these values for a number of venues, not just a single venue. So this is there. We have the three values. The only thing which is left is extracting the categories after this. So for extracting the categories, what we need is right now the Foursquare API is updated so that you can get the category directly. But like if you're going to work with like other APIs, this is going to be part of how you retrieve the data. So you're going to hit an API, get like lots of data, which would be nested in it could be list, it could be dictionary, it could be list of dictionaries, and you will have to find like certain data from in there which would be relevant to your use case. So this is like important to know. Like this is called pre-processing. Before you start doing something with the data, you need to get it in a form that you can use. In the Foursquare API, if you need like more details on a restaurant, what you need is the IDs, I think. So we're just gonna, so we have the venues already. So let me add that here before so this is what the venues look like, right? So I want to take out the IDs from this so that I can hit the API to get more details, right? So what I can do is I can use list comprehension. So I can run for venue and venues, and then I can retrieve the ID. So this is the key for that ID. And then I can, we have a function which is called get details. Let me go back to that again. So what that does is when you give the ID, when you give the restaurant ID to it, it hits the API and gets you the details. So you just have to give the restaurant ID to it, and you will get the details of the restaurant. So how we're gonna call this is we're gonna pass in the ID for each restaurant. So again, like this has to be a list comprehension. So for ID in IDs, we want to get the details of each restaurant. So let's see what we get out of this. So this is what we get out of this. So we get the detail for each restaurant. Now what we want to do is we want to go in. Right now I just printed one. So we want to go in. So it's basically a list of like dictionaries. Right now it's just one. So we want to go in. For each restaurant, we want to go into the categories key and look at the list. So the categories value is a list of dictionaries, basically. It could be like multiple, but right now it's just one dictionary. So And this is again for the one thing. So if I want to access it just like that, it would look like this: venue details, categories. So what I've done here is what you get from this API is you get a list of dictionaries for each restaurant. So each restaurant has its own dictionary, and then what I'm doing is now I'm reading just one of it here, okay? And then I'm going in and I'm going and accessing the categories key, and I get this. So what I did was, you had the first dictionary, I went in and I just took out this part from this dictionary. Does it make sense? So I just accessed it. So it was a list of dictionaries. I just accessed the first dictionary in that list, and inside that dictionary, I went into the category scheme and got the value from in there. So this is what it looks like. So I could have written it. Let me maybe just write it. It would have looked like this. This is what I've done. I've read it out into a single, if I I'm just gonna write it in one single box so that makes sense. So it was like a list of dictionaries, and then I read it into one single thing, and then I'm just accessing the categories. And now I have to access the category name. How I'm gonna do that is, and then I'm gonna go inside that, and then I'm gonna access the name. See if we can get it out. There must be integers and slices. Okay. Am I not reading this? Sorry. Yeah. It's okay. Does this make sense? So basically, this is what it looks like, and now I'm trying to access. I'm just writing it all in one go. So I could have, let's just do one step at a time. So this is what it looks like when I access just the categories dictionary inside a single restaurant dictionary. And then if I read the list, this dictionary has a list. So if I read the list, I am just reading the first item in the list. This is what it looks like. So that's why you see the square bracket going away. And now I can go into the dictionary and just read the name. So whenever you are comprehending a big structure, look at the brackets very carefully. When you have the square brackets, it means a list. So you would have to use the indices to access the first item, second item. And when you see the curly braces, it means it's a dictionary. So you're going to use a key to access the values. So now I've done it for one single item, and now, but I want to do it for all the items. So it's a bunch of dictionaries. So we had a function again, if you go up into your code, there would be a function which extracts the categories from the venue details. So we can use this function directly, run a for loop comprehension, list comprehension, and get all of the category names. So it would look like this. Let me run it. So what we need in this is just the venue details. So I'm just going to run it over each venue. For venue and venues, just give me the names of the categories. So if we look at just to give an idea of what it looks like, our venues details again. This is what it looks like. And for extract categories, what we have to pass in is venue details, which is just one single item of the venue's detail. So that's why I'm running a for loop. So I'm accessing one single item at a time. One single item at a time from venue's details and giving it to this extract categories function and getting the categories. So let's see if this works, or we're gonna try something else. Okay. Does this make sense?
Yeah, one thing that's just a little subtle, right, is that there's a difference in the code, right, between venues details, venues plural details, and venue details singular. So it's just pay attention to that, guys. Right, because the venues details is a list of dictionaries the details for multiple venues. So then Write-A-Perf is like iterating through each one of those venues, extracting the categories from each one, and then we have it in a list, right? Cool.
So now what we have is we have a list of the categories, and earlier what we had was we had somewhere we got all the other three values. Where was that? Let's see. Yeah, it was the venue summaries. So venue summaries and venues categories. So we have these two lists. Let's go back to where we were. Yes. Yeah. So we have two lists now. Let me print these out. Venues summaries. So this is our first list, and then you have venues. I'm not going to print it out. We have it up. So we have like two lists. One is like corresponding to the category names. The other one is corresponding to all the other three values. But what the question says is we want all the four together. So at the end of the day, like what we want is a list of dictionaries, and each dictionary corresponds to a single restaurant containing the ID, the name, the location, and the category. So how I can go about this right now is, actually I've written it down, but let me. So I can like look at the venue summary, and just like I'm just gonna like read one of it, and then for the venue category, and so what like Jeff just said, just make sure you're looking at the names properly. So like we have the venue summaries, that's the list of all the ID, the location, the name. And we have the venues categories, which has the list of categories. So I'm just reading one of this, the one corresponding to the first restaurant. And then what I've done is I've like copied the summary into the copied summary variable. So what it looks like is, this is what it looks like. So now what I've done is I've actually not done anything in there, but like I'm gonna show you something. Why I'm doing the copy thingy. So I have a dictionary with the ID, name, location. What I need is the category in there. So I can just define a new key for this dictionary and give it the value venue underscore categories. So this is what we want at the end of the day. What I was saying earlier, like you have a list of dictionaries with the three items. We want the fourth item added in. That is the category. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a copy of it, because we learned this earlier, right? Like if you have a dictionary, it would be you will have the reference to the dictionary, which will be pointing to the dictionary wherever it's stored. And when you say dict1 equal to dict2, dict1 is again pointing to the same thing. So if you make changes to dict1, it's going to happen to dict2. So what we want to do is want to make a copy of dict2 and then use the copy to make changes. So like dict1 is not changed. Does it make sense? So that's why I made a copy. That is the only reason I'm making a copy. So basically, like I could have done it right in here, but then it would have changed this as well. So I just made a copy of it and added a key to it, category, and gave it the value which we want in there. So so basically we have two lists, and we can like now we have to do it for all of them. So how we're going to do it for all of them is we just want to like compare what our lists look like. If they are the same length, we can use the zip method or any other method to like put them together, so that like the category key is inside each of those dictionaries. So if you look at the length of venues category, it is 10. And if you look at the length of a venue summaries, it's also 10. Let me print it out together. So both of them are 10 and 10. So we can like put them together, like we can like write a code to like do all of this automatically, so that we don't have to like do it every single time for each of those. So the code is already there. So basically what is happening here is I'm using zip here. So we are going over venue summaries and we're going over venues categories at the same time. And then again, like the same code that we did earlier, we make a copy of the venue summary. And the reason we are doing it is because we don't want the change to happen in venue summary itself. And then to that key, we are assigning this value. And after that, we are just appending it to this list. So at the end of the day, like we are doing it for each dictionary at a time, and we are running a for loop over it. And we are able to do this for loop over it. It's because these lists, both of them have the same length. So that's why we are able to use zip, and we are able to like work with both those elements at the same time. Does it make sense? Like we are starting with the first index, and we are going to like the 9th index. So it'll be 0th to the 9th index. And we are working on it at the same time, each one of those, and like putting them together and like appending it to a list. So at the end of the day, what you're gonna get is a list of dictionaries containing those items. So let's see what we get. So we get like I'm just printing 2 of those. So you get a list of dictionaries, and each of those dictionaries have the ID name. ID name and location were already there, right? We just added the categories then. That's about it. And oh yeah, there was one more thing to it. Now we have to sort it by the ID. So we can just use the sorted function of the list, because what you have is a list of dictionaries. So you can just throw this thing in the sorted function, but you need to make sure that it's doing it by ID, and that is why the last part is in there. You have to tell what key you're going to sort it by. So we are telling it that we're going to sort it by the ID, and we sort it and like convert that into a list. And this is what the sorted list looks like. This was earlier. So we had the 5D5 earlier, and now it's 519. So we did sort it by the IDs. Let me know if okay, I see the chat. What if the lengths were different? So you were, okay, if the lengths were different, you wouldn't use zip, but you can still loop it. I have worked with something like that. But in this use case, obviously the lengths would be same, because we are pulling the categories out of the same data that we got from the API, same output data that we got from the API, and we are pulling in the other data also from the same data that we got from the API. So it gave us a list of dictionaries of 10 restaurants, and we got the ID, name, and location for the 10, and then we got the categories out for the 10, and then we're putting it together. So we could use a zip function. So that was the part. The other thing you can do is like you can find, if you're working with list of like different lengths and you want to like put it together, like first of all, how do they like correspond in index wise? First of all, that like what's the use case? What's the data like? Do you want to put them together? So if it's like one is of 9 elements, the other one is of 11 elements. So maybe only the first 9 go with the first 9, and the rest 3 in the second list, you just throw them out because you had missing data in the first list. It could be like, depending on the use case, you can just like index, like run a for loop over the indices from like 0 to 9 then, or 0 to 8 here, length of 9. Does it make sense? Any other?
I have a question, Pro. So, on like before the for loop, if we copy the list of dictionary of the venue summaries instead of copy the dictionary inside loop, would it be the same, or one is better than the other?
So you, what you're saying is doing this outside?
Yeah, but we don't copy a list, but we don't copy each dictionary, but we copy like the whole list of dictionary.
Like venue summaries.
And then we add like extra key to each dictionary, which is the category.
Then you would have to, you would have to access each of those dictionaries then inside the for loop.
Well, no, I think the question is like, you see venue summaries, right? That's a list of dictionaries. So, right, the question is like, can you just copy the list, like the container that holds each of those dictionaries, instead of one by one copying the dictionary themselves, right? And the answer is right, and you can't do that, because what that will do, right? And that's a very tricky. Actually, like when I joined, like I think like my first like problem, like I helped work on was that kind of problem. There was a bug because people. Wait, maybe can I just show? Let me just share my screen for a sec.
Yeah, sure.
Let me do this. Colab. Yes, it's a very good question. So, like, if you have a list of dictionaries, you know, and let's say name is Bob, and then we do, you know, name is Fred. Right, so the question is, you know, we kind of have seen, all right, we don't want to alter the original, So we like go one by one for student in students and do like student dot copy, right? And then we, and then we do the copied student, right? And then we do the update. Let's just do is name equals Susan. Right, and so obviously, as we know, right, this does not alter the original, right? It alters the copy. Now, what if we do students.copy equals copied students, right, plural? And you look at this, and now we remove it here. This list, these outer brackets, they are different. These guys inside are the same, okay? I believe at least. So now we'll do for student, update it, and now look at the copied students, right? And they are updated. Even though the list itself is different, right? This is just the wrapper, but the candy inside or whatever is the same candy as was here, okay?
So, what if we look the copy students for student and copy students?
For student, oh yeah, you can do that too. Copied students. Sorry, you're right. That's a better example. This will still break. This will. Let's start over. So we start with our list of students, Bob and Fred. We copy the outside list, and then I'm pretty sure, or now I'm second guessing myself, that this will still update the original, right? Because even though this outer list is copied, is different, the components inside were not copied. And so now let's look at the list of original students and see, did we update them? I think we did. You see that? We did update them. And you can kind of confirm that if you look at students, if you look at the ID, right, of students, that's this guy. If you look at the ID of copied students, that should be different, right? So that's different, 40512. But if you look at each of the elements inside students and copied students, for copy student in this, and you do the ID of each one, let's see, these should all, we think that these should all be the same, right? Both the copied list, like they're gonna match the corresponding ones of each of the students, these original students. Let's take a look at that. So now we do this, and we'll say for student in students. So these are the same. You see that? That makes sense?
I see.
So this concept is called something. It's called deep learning versus deep copy versus
Yes.
shallow copy.
Yes.
So basically, like Python as a language tries to not make copies. It just wants to like keep referring to the same object because you want to save your compute and memory, right? So Python as a language just avoids like making like multiple copies of the same objects. So even if you like do a dot copy on like a bigger object which has multiple objects inside it, what it'll do is it'll make a copy of the bigger object, which is the list, the outer object, but the inner objects are still at the same place. It's just like referring to the same place. So you have to do this something called dot deep copy. You have to do that. But yeah, that's like.
Yeah, I think
That was
right.
the question.
Let's see if that works. I think that's right. Yeah, so I haven't done a deep copy in forever. Let's see if this is the right method name. This exists, this deep copy thing. I just don't. You might need another language, import a library or something, or maybe there's no underscore.
There's no underscore, I think.
Anyway.
There's no underscore.
Yeah, so we can. We'll have to Google this, but yeah, if you want to copy both the outer list and then the inner dictionary, right, the inner elements, yeah, it's this deep copy method that you'll need to use. Cool, that was great. All right, cool. So that was a really great question. You know, I didn't do the whole lab, so I just pulled like a list of keys. Let's say we have some keys. This is from like a single Paul Simon probably dictionary. And then I want to get values. I don't know how. I'm just going to generate some sample values. So here's 17 values, and let's just call it like value, oh, not like that. Let's do a list. Does that work? Okay, so this should be 17 values. So here are my values. Okay, and now how am I going to pair these together, right? What I want to do is create a dictionary such that I have, these set of keys and the corresponding set of values. So everyone should be saying zip, right? So we can zip together the keys and the values and then do a dict, and now that will create, right, a sample dictionary for me. So I'll call this, right, my sample track or something like that, right? So then there was this problem, which is given a list of keys, like let's say we have like some selected keys, and that is like album, let's say it's popularity, and like ID. It will just select those attributes, okay? How are we going to do that programmatically, I suppose? Well, what you can do is, in a way, you can almost see this as like a filtering problem, potentially, right? If you do dot items, right? Because now I can go through for k comma v in sample track dot items, return, k comma v, return maybe a tuple. If, right? So we're going to go through each one of these pairs and only keep it if the key is in one of these guys, right? K is in selected keys. You see that? So the idea is, we have this dictionary that's pretty large, and now we want a subset of it. If we want a subset, right, there's a filtering problem. But in order to turn it into a filtering problem, you need to turn it into a list first, right? And what we're filtering based on is the key, right? So again, it's for k comma v, unpack each tuple here in sample track dot items, hold on to the k comma v, right? Hold on to the key, like return this tuple. If the key is in this list is one of these, right? If the key is one of these three, return it. And then of course, from here, you can turn that into a dictionary. Makes sense? All right. So I'll post this, in the video. Do review this. I'll also post the solution. And we'll probably spend, some time reviewing Python some more on Sunday, and then we'll move into SQL. Do spend some time over the next couple of days shoring up your Python skills, please. All right? It will pay off forever.